Good morning, all. Welcome to session 1, 24th February 2022. I would request to all the participants that today's eminent speaker is going to shortly join with us. So please to join the session as fast as possible. Thank you.
मैं तो लिस्ट में नाम देखा है।
चंचल मैडम।
जी सर। जी
सर है ज्वाइन।
वेलकम सर।
सर नमस्कार।
अभी नमस्कार सर।
एक बार इंश्योर कर लेते हैं
जी।
तो मुझे मैसेज आया है कि ज्वाइन कर लिया है। IT
team is requested to make sir co-host. Yes sir. Sir आपको co-host बना दिया गया है. I would like to request you.
And IT team will check whether sir is unmuted or not. Immediately
yes,
unmute. And
he has been made co-host sir.
Right.
नमस्कार सर.
नमस्कार.
जी.
सर नमस्कार.
नमस्कार. How are you?
I am fine sir. आप अच्छे हैं सर?
Yeah, all well.
Sorry.
इजाजत हो sir.
Sir, with your permission, can we start the session?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. Chanchal madam, start the session.
Thank you, sir. With your permission, I would like to welcome our eminent speaker and innovative administrator, Shri Anand Pandeji, on behalf of our Honorable Vice Chancellor and SVSU family. Shri Anand Pandeji is an IFS officer and is currently serving as Director General and Secretary, Foreign Cooperation Department, Government of Haryana. Sir is also a Mission Director of Haryana Skill Development Mission, Chief Executive Officer of Haryana Kaushal Rozgar Nigam, and Chief Conservator of Forests. Sir is having an outstanding academic background. He has done BTech in Civil Engineering from IIT Varanasi, MTech in Building Science and Construction Management, again from IIT Delhi, and he has done MS in Forest Management from Forest Research Institute, Dehradun. He has also done a Masters of International Development Policy from Duke University of Sanford School of Public Policies. He has served the nation as Private Secretary to Shri S. Ramodaria, Chairman and Advisor to Honorable Prime Minister on Skill Development from July 2013 to 2017. He has also served as a Director, Government of India, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana from Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India. During his tenure in PMO on skill ecosystem, the skill ecosystem has evolved with a different perspective in India. It has been accepted and popularized at pan-India level. This period under the guidance of Shri Anand Pandeji can be called as a transformational phase of skilling in India. Sir, the introduction of NSQF level in skilling is reflecting in NEP 2020 also as National Higher Education Qualification Framework. It is our indeed pleasure that on developing skill ecosystem and leadership amongst the higher education institute, you are there to guide us directly. Thank you, sir. I would like to invite you to address our participant across the nation today. Thank you, sir. Shri Anand Pandeji.
Thank you, Chanchal, for that kind words. And I'm not sure who all have joined. If you could just tell the spectrum of people who have joined, it will be a better. I'll be a better place to address them.
Sir,
Just
yes, today, sir, we have academia across the nation from different states, from Jammu Kashmir to South India, Gujarat to Northeast, and we have professor, HODs, deans, to up to assistant professor level, sir, from different institutes across the nation.
Thank you, Chanchal, for that.
And these are from different disciplines also, sir. These are from different disciplines, starting from humanities, arts, management, science, technology, all different disciplines, sir.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Professor Rishipa.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
It's my privilege to be a part of this August gathering, and I'm proud that I'm honored actually that SVSU has invited me for this session. I've been, as Chanchal has told earlier also, that I've been joined I've been in the skilling ecosystem probably right from the beginning when it started to formalize. I would not say that we started it, but when it started to gain some momentum in terms of formalization of the ecosystem. Definitely, there were a lot of efforts earlier also at different levels, Government of India and the state levels. We all know, I will not go into the details of the ecosystem, just primarily few things I will talk about in terms of the existing thing that was prior to 2012-10. And then throughout this last 8 to 10 years, what transformation has gone and how the basic appreciation of skilling ecosystem, the importance and appreciation of skill sets in the world of learning has really increased. So if we talk about prior to 2008-10, the basic, if you talk about vocational education, there was only one tier, that is basically when we talked about vocational education, it was reflected that there were ITIs, the Industrial Training Institutes, which was under the Ministry of Employment and Labor, which primarily catered to students from 8th to 12th level who wanted to join the vocational education system, catering mostly to the manufacturing sector, if you talk about fitter, plumber, and all those sectors, to meet the needs of the industry, primarily to the manufacturing industry. We also had the polytechnics, which was under the Ministry of HRD, then Ministry of HRD, now it is Ministry of Education. So Ministry of HRD was governing the polytechnic and technical education setup. And beyond polytechnic, so polytechnic again was a 3-year diploma in different, mostly again catering to the manufacturing and industrial sectors. And above that, it was all higher education system, where actually not much had been done in terms of the skilling efforts or vocationalization of higher education. Way back, I remember in 2007-8, there was a lot of emphasis. It started gaining momentum, that vocationalization of school education. And there was a talk for vocationalization of school education. Government of India started, I think, several schemes on that. Vocationalization of school education was one of the scheme in the Ministry of HRD again. However, when we talk about universities, when we talk about the higher education setup, not much, was done till I think very recent, a decade back or so. This, what I could gauge was that there is the mindset, there is an attitude and a mindset issue when we talk about the higher education system. Normally, higher education, I've been, during earlier days in 2010-12 also, when we used to talk to the HRD ministry, somehow we got the feedback, that this skilling is not their, is not their domain. It's basically primarily they are into making citizens, aware citizens, knowledgeable citizens for the nation. And I had, fortunately, I due to my being in the skill space, I was fortunate to get a chance to visit almost more than 25-30 countries where the best of the vocational education was given. If you talk about Germany, Switzerland, France, Brazil. So several of these countries when I visited, although I'm also from the same background as she has told, that from a purely academic background, IIT, and then going to masters in Duke, the challenge that I faced, in all these, when I see in the hindsight, I feel that the challenge is there is a huge this mindset that we need to develop in the higher education echelons is basically that skilling is as much their domain as nation building through knowledge economy. So that, that specific focus just for gaining academic credentials and knowledge economy would definitely not serve the purpose that this, this world is looking for actually. If we talk about the objective of any education system, One, of course, is making knowledgeable citizens, gaining academic credentials. But ultimately, if we talk, there are very few in all the academic institutions that go again into the academic institutions for teaching, for other activities, research activities. However, what we are doing in the academic institution basically is we are preparing them for a transition from the world of learning to the world of work. And this appreciation that, the focus for that from the world of learning, making this transition a smooth one, somehow this focus was lacking in the higher academic institutions. So that, through this last 10 years, a lot of emphasis have been, given. And for, it is a good news, actually. We are really happy that due to all the efforts of Government of India and several of the state governments, this mindset change, this acceptance and appreciation of the fact that not only they are preparing students for their knowledge, for their nation, for the citizenship or citizenry development, but they're also trying to develop the students for the transition to the world of work. So that is a big achievement if we talk about countries like India, where vocational education has been a sort of a dead end or a stigma that one who is not able to learn much, or who has some learning issues, not good in maths, not good in science, they are actually going for this type of vocational education. So that is a one big although still I think a lot more needs to be done when we talk about leadership development at the higher level. So when we talk about education institute, many of our senior professors and deans and vice chancellors probably have joined this. If we see how many academic institutions are sending any of their professor or teacher to a vocational research institute, you will find that probably very few. Most of them go for learning, academic exchange of academic scholarship or something like that. But probably that lack that academic world, venturing into vocational education research, and visiting, let's say, BIBB, which is probably one of the world's best research institute in vocational education, or NCVER, which is in Australia. So these are premier institutions where normally you would not find academic institutions or our universities sending their professors to learn what exactly they are doing. Mostly our professors and teachers are visiting other academic institutions. So that part, I think, more sensitization probably should be done if we really want to change the ecosystem, if we really want to develop and sensitize the academic world into the fact that this is a very critical part of their they are into that nation building through the citizenship development, and this is a very, very critical part if they want to really want that this youth dividend that we have turns this youth demography that we have turns into a youth dividend. And when we used to talk about that, still there is a lag. Still when we talk to academic institutions, normally it's all in human nature. We generally try to avoid new things. We try to resist and then oppose. So this, but fortunately, through this last few years effort of the current government and the previous governments, this sensitization has gained a lot of momentum. I would just give you one example. When we used to interact with the HRD ministry at that point of time, there is a concept I'm sure many of you who have joined actually must be knowing, that recognition of prior learning. So when we talked about recognition of prior learning, we tried to explain them that what exactly it is. One who is having some knowledge and skills through formal or informal learning process, could be certified, and could be certified that he's a master. He's a master to train people. He's a master to teach people. So we try to give them example that why not this sort of RPL to be introduced just on a pilot stage in the academic world. So let's say, teachers, there are many teachers. What happens in India is that the school education, if we talk about, there are several, schools if you go in the villages, if you go in the blocks, there are several schools where we do not find BA teachers, Bachelor of Education teachers. So what they are running schools, they have been teaching there for tens of years, but without that qualification. So they cannot, come into the government schooling system because they need a BA. So once who is teaching for, let's say, 5 years, 7 years, we should have a mechanism to test their skills, a strong test which can certify them that yes, they are equivalent. They know what all skills are there in the as a B.Ed, as a B.Ed qualification. If their skills match those B.Ed qualification, why not? Why to push them into a degree, into looking for a degree? Why not certifying them? Ultimately, if we see across the world, we have admissions based on testing mechanism, a very sound testing mechanism, SAT, GRE for admissions. So why not testing mechanism? And we have testing mechanism, by the way. Let me tell you, there in France, actually, you get PhDs on the basis of RPL, so recognition of prior learning. If you are able to present, if you are saying that you have presented several papers, you have done core research, you can, there is a process through which you can go and get an RPL, a PhD degree through RPL. So that, that is a distant dream, that we have our PhD through RPL, but at least for some of these, for some of these skilled jobs, probably if academic world also learns, academic world also appreciates this recognition of prior learning, then probably, again, that will again bring a huge shift in terms of formalization of what we have informally, engaged people. That was just one example. Now, again, when we come to the other aspect, strength of our higher education system is that they have always, there is a UGC, University Grants Commission, and there are other state standards and norms which they have to follow. So the best thing that has happened in this higher education world is that there is definitely a level of standardization which is accepted, and we all know that university has to, if you want to set up a university, you need to adhere to those standards. So that is a very great strength of the higher academic institutions. Now, how we can leverage that strength to build the overall skilling ecosystem is another area. So first was, of course, sensitization and into the higher end leadership and the professors through visits to vocational education of international eminence. That is one. And then, of course, the second one is that sensitizing them through recognition of their own fellow people. Their own fellow means those who are into the teaching domain, those who are into the instruction domain, instructors, teachers, lab assistants. Several of them could be there where it is possible. And if, just to give you an example, if we have the most sensitive sector that I would call today is the health sector. If the health sector recognizes RPL, recognition of prior learning, for a GDA, for a phlebotomist, for a GDA, then why not the academic world? That is, again, a huge mindset change is required in that sector also. And I think the NEP also talks about that. The other thing that I was talking about, the great strength of the academic world is into this, they have an infrastructure, they have people of eminence, they have professors and teachers who have come through a lot of rigor of education, and that strength could be leveraged in terms of content building. One major thing that we did achieve when I was there it's not my personal achievement, I would call, but there was a whole team which did achieve that. We could build the standards, that national skills qualification framework. First time in the whole of country, there was at least one standard. I know there might be a lot of, still drawbacks or something missing in that, but at least we could achieve one benchmarking, one standard we used to talk about is that across the country, there will be a national skill qualification framework, and all courses that has to be run in the skilling ecosystem needs to align to that national skilling standards. So that part we have achieved. But if you talk about the NSQF, the National Skill Qualification Framework talks only at the outcomes level, that this is, and that is what most of the qualifications or the courses that we call job roles qualification or courses that were developed, basically they talked about the outcomes that we are foreseeing for a particular qualification. So if you want to say an electrician, if you want to say an artificial intelligence operator or something like that, it just said what is expected from them, what all things are required that person can do. But unfortunately, that was, the missing part was that we talked about the outcomes, the industry talked about the outcomes. First time, in the history of whole vocational education and this setup, the skilling ecosystem, the industry came forward and they developed standards. We have, I know there are a lot of issues with that also, but 70 to 80% was really worth. They did a lot of work and we could get that. So we talked about the outcomes. The industry said that we need this guy has to perform this activity. But the missing link was how much time and what content is required to make that person that competent competent. This part is still missing, unfortunately. And that is where I guess, and I'm sure, with the strength of the universities, if they can collaborate with the industry, if the academic institutions collaborate with industry, there they can play a very, very critical and historical, I would say, a revolutionary role, that development of the learning hours. See, we talk about outcomes. We know in the academic world also we talk about the learning outcomes. But learning outcomes cannot be achieved without some standard inputs that has to be given. That standard inputs and the content design, the number of hours required. So today we talk about that. Okay, this much. This course requires the qualification, or the in the NSQF qualification requires 500 hours. But unfortunately, there is no research on that 500 hours. Whether it really requires 500 hours, whether it requires 1,000 hours, because that is a very core strategic research that some of the Western world countries have done by developing a long, during a duration of period, they have developed that this particular skill set or competency requires this many hours. So that, I believe, and I'm really confident on that we can achieve a lot if the universities, if our higher education system, they collaborate with industry, with the skill missions. And fortunately, we have skill universities also set up. We can work together into really developing the core content. The problem why I say that is that this currently, the way skilling system is going on is that we have developed an outcome-based qualification. We have given everything, handed over. After that, we have handed over everything to training providers. With the standards, we all know with the standards, with the strength of the training providers, we are expecting private training providers to deliver a public good. Content for the category of people that we are talking about is in economics. Those of us who have been into some economic, macroeconomics, microeconomics, we talk about public good. This content for the vocational education, for the National Qualification Framework, NSQF aligned courses, is actually a public good that needs to be delivered, that needs to be strengthened and delivered through a very collaborative process between our public institutions, academic institutions, and the industry. And we cannot, and what we have done is we have left it to the private training providers, and we are seeing the result. that even after skilling, we know the placements. Ultimately, again, I will talk that we are preparing either through skilling or through higher education. Ultimately, we are preparing 80 to 90% of the public. We are preparing only for the world of work. And if we are unable to, if we are, giving them content which is developed by private training providers who do not have that bandwidth, who do not have that core competency to develop content. So that is one region where I would insist the leadership of higher education department and higher education institutions to please pay attention and play a big vital role in this, because this ultimately it will be a game changer in the whole ecosystem of skilling. Now, a few points that in terms of broader engagement, I would say, of course, the academic institutions should involve more industries. If fortunately, I could go to Duke University, we found that there were a lot of art subject even. So if you are doing BA Bachelor of Arts, you can learn monitoring and evaluation techniques. Sets which are required in across the industry are actually being taught. Unfortunately, our higher education system, again, see, what we always normally do is that we segregate things. We prepared a world of higher education. We prepared another vertical of vocational education through ITIs. And then when we saw that there is a failure because of the rigidity of the system, we substituted and added another vertical, that short-term skilling and qualification through through seeing different policies and different. But the that integration and the collaboration between these all these institutions is very key to strengthen each other. It is not that the higher education institutes cannot learn from vocational education. There's a lot of things that higher education system can learn from the vocational education, and of course vocational education always banks on this big brother, that how that big brother can handhold them and intervene to make their standards. Today Germany has 50% enrollment in the vocational education and 50% in higher education. So you see this trend, they both are treated equally at equal at equal level. There is no difference. Some of their vocational education institutes, their seats get filled before the academic institutions, the universities. I know that is a far-fetched idea in the current scenario in India, but that is the ultimate objective that we should work for. And I know that in our academic institutions are very well equipped. It is only only an extra work that they have to do, and a mindset with an open mind that this is another learning another learning learning domain that they need to incorporate within that system. So that is why there are a lot of effort has been done in terms of developing skill centers in universities, in terms of development of community colleges and vocationalization of school education. So lot of things have moved in the very right direction, but we need an extra push, because this demographic dividend ultimately is just for 15 years. After 2040, again our graph is going to come down, as the Europeans or other countries are facing. Before that onset, we need to take full advantage, and I feel that with the strength of the academic world, with the profound knowledge and knowledge base that they have, if they actually take this vocationalization and vocational education as seriously as their other academic learning, I'm sure that this would definitely play a great it will be a game changer and revolutionize the whole system. Academic qualifications are worldwide accepted. That is another area where, when I talked about content, I talked about that content development with a very specific objective, because when we used to talk of credit framework, unfortunately, the very thing that academic institutions opposed is that how can a 300 hours, what credit we can give to a 300-hour course? Because they never, and I also believe that I too do not have a very confident, a lot of confidence on the 300-hour course or 400-hour course to be developed into a credit. So this gap happened because of this, mistrust, I would say. Because of the mistrust on the system, the academic world never accepted the credit framework that was being developed by the vocational world. And there was again a mismatch. Now, fortunately, in the NEP, we talk about that, and that's a great step forward. If the academic world is involved into the content development, and I'm sure that that would further help into the strengthening of the academic framework, the credit framework that we are talking about today, because ultimately the credit framework would help into the upward mobility, horizontal mobility of students across the world, across the ladder of the learning. So that if we want to succeed in that, then the very first prerequisite I find is that their academic institutions' involvement in the content development is a very much required. And once we do that, it will be a great step forward in terms of international recognition also, because ultimately today we have our academic institutions very well recognized across the world. We have the best of the IITs and universities, private universities, government universities, which are recognized across the world. Now, if they start playing their critical role into the credit accumulation system or credit bank system that we are developing, it will be very helpful for the vocational world also in getting international recognition that we talk. And international recognition, international recognition is very much required when we talk about the shortage of skills, shortage of skilled manpower across the world, especially in Europe, Japan, and several other aging societies. We talk about this, and if we miss this, today I'm also handling the foreign cooperation department, which has a mandate for overseas. We discuss with Japan or some other countries. The other states like Nepal, Vietnam, they're already into it. But unfortunately, we are lagging behind with much broader, with much stronger higher education system, technical education system, and a very vast, vocational education system. But that is where we can really work together and probably, help in terms of strengthening the ecosystem. And of course, again, that when we talk about university, the strength of the academic higher education is they have space, they have labs, they have they have all the wherewithals to develop into a hub and spoke model where the small training providers or the ITIs cannot do probably a lot of part in terms of really high-end technologies to deliver such content. They can play again a very, very important role in making the accessibility is a big issue in skilling ecosystem, with the kind of communication revolution that we are seeing in terms of data flows, in terms of internet access increasing. So there also, if our higher education system, higher academic institutions can play in terms of leveraging the technology in a hub and spoke model to deliver and enhance the X of the skilling efforts that we are talking about. Again, the last point that I would talk about is basically that we again have the new age technologies. The academic world actually comes to know through, because they have the researchers. So they are the first one to know about the latest development that is happening across the world. We cannot expect our ITIs to know the latest development, or the polytechnics or the private training providers. So the academic institutions are at the top level, and they have access to information, they have access to research papers, they have access to studies, that they know that yes, what is the latest technology, latest trend in this area. If those latest trend and latest skill sets requirement or in demand skills are actually forecasted, or actually if they can present to the policy makers that this is the change that is going to happen, probably the policymakers can also help in devising policies and schemes where where we can work together for the futuristic skills, because we know with this technology transformation, a lot of creative destruction in terms of jobs are happening. If you talk about robots, if you talk about mechanization of a lot of activities in auto sector, in several other sectors, this is going to happen. But it is again a creative destruction. We are destroying some jobs, but we are creating a lot more. So that information is at the higher level, at the academic world. A lot of research papers are there. If that research papers, if those things, that can be handhold, that can be actually propagated to the policymakers, and that we stick together and develop another strategies for this futuristic skills, that would be a great again great contribution by the higher education system. And finally, this whole skilling effort is again a joint effort. It has to be taken. I think I have somebody raising a hand. Any questions? Yeah, I'm sorry, I could have said that if you have any questions, please go ahead. I have somebody.
IT team, please unmute the person who has raised the hand.
I think some by Bhuvaneshwari M. There is a. Is it a question or is something else?
Would you like to ask something? Madam Bhuvaneshwari ji, you have raised your hands. Would you like to ask something from the speaker, sir?
Okay.
I think, sir, we can take the queries after your.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
I just him to please unmute the again. Thank you, sir. Please.
All right. So finally, I would say that this is again a very it's an urgent need of the hour that we work together, the academic institutions, the policymakers, the industries. We need to come together to again, I would say the if you talk about skill gap studies, let's say this is skill shortages. The industry is saying that there is a skill shortage, but we need the projections. It is highly projection based. If we talk about the skill gap studies that have been recently shown to us, basically on a projection that this X sector is going to grow at some level, so there will be this many jobs. I would say the industries to really utilize their resources, utilize their students. They have wonderful bench strength of students, researchers, and they can motivate some of these students who are into some labor economics or similar subjects to do such practical skill gap studies and shortages at the grassroots level. We cannot expect the big four or the consultancy firms to help us out in terms of going and dirtying our hands in the field and getting some real information of what exactly are the gaps. If we have a very good strength of students at the university and higher academic institutions, we should leverage that strength in terms of doing some practical skill gap studies, bringing at the district level, at the village level. And the other thing that the higher academic institutions, I would also urge to play a very important role again is into developing entrepreneurship skills, because ultimately job creators are much more important than only job seekers. We are preparing job seekers. Unfortunately, if we go to the Western world, let me tell you, there are universities which are actually hubs of startups. Our universities and our very few IITs, and some of them have really this capacity. Why not our universities, in across the sector. I mean that why not those who are teaching, let's say, arts or any other subject, why they cannot develop startup hubs within them? Because ultimately, what we require is not only job seekers, we require job creators also, because hardly 2% of the jobs is in the public sector. Most of them is in the private sector. And how do we promote private sector job creators? By inculcating entrepreneurship skills. And let me tell you, the maximum time a student at a very mature age spends is basically in these university or higher education system. So that is another role that probably the higher education system can play by becoming hub of startups. And they need to, we can work together to develop policies which incentivizes developing that hub, developing their organizations as hub of startups. So I mean, it is a very, very challenging task. I know there are several things that I've asked and I'm expecting, and but we have to overcome this challenge if we really want the country to grow, if we really want the states to grow, if we really want the people to grow and develop, if we want to climb from a lower middle income to a higher middle income, and to into the rich nations. We need to strengthen our human resource, because I'm sure, with the kind of people who have joined me, they are very well aware that any country's development, any country's strength actually is not at all natural resource, is not at all any other resource. The biggest asset that any country can have is human resource. And human resource development is key to the development of any country, or any country going into the rich nation, into the developed higher levels of development requires a strong human resource. So that is where our objective should be. We should work together, the academicians, the policymakers, the industries, that we need to strengthen our human resource development. That is all from my side. I think I've spoken a lot, and I would definitely be happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to request IT team that please unmute those who have raised their hands one by one.
I think there are no questions.
Yes, sir. Someone has raised the hand. IT team, please. Dr. C.V. Lathaji want to ask something?
Actually, now house is open, and request to all the participants, if they have any doubt, they want to clarify anything, they want to ask anything from our esteemed resource person, please either you raise your hand, or you can put your question in the chat box, and from there we will read out and we will share. Chanchal madam will share it with our esteemed guest. So you can come through the chat box, or directly you can interact with our resource person. Chanchal madam, I think there is, yes, Chanchal madam. Chanchal madam, unmute yourself.
Sir, there is one question. It is regarding that what are the best tools to generate the job creators?
See, if you talk about job creators means basically what are the type of skill sets required to become a job creator. By job creator, we mean an entrepreneur. So there are a lot of skill sets that are required to become an entrepreneur. There is a set of, that for that also even there is a curriculum, and we find that some of these are you definitely taught during the MBA courses, and that is why we find that most of our current age entrepreneurs are coming through that MBA courses. But that is what we are talking about, when we talk about a very high end entrepreneur, that I'm doing after MBA, he goes to an investment banking agency, then he works there, comes back and sets up a startup. When we talk about, in fact, I have proposed this even at the school level, because these are skill sets today. There are a lot of students who have entered. I can say with confidence that there will be several students who have entered into the higher education system without probably they having even a basic knowledge of banking, financial literacy, because their parents have been using it and now they are into it. So you know this is a very long period of 3 years. If you talk about a graduation in a university, it is a 3 year period. If we slowly develop that, the basic entrepreneurship skills in terms of setting up a business, financial literacy, in terms of all those skill sets, we have a proper course for this, or developing entrepreneurship skills. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in setting up of enterprises, of course with support from the government in terms of facilitating the last losing end, in terms of credit linkages, in terms of market linkages. But the basic entrepreneurship skills of setting up of enterprises, resourcing of capital, HR management, if you are setting up a, all these are some of these skills that that needs to be inculcated during the and it should be integrated as part of the courses that that is being taught. If somebody is learning, let's say, a bachelor of arts and masters of arts in advertising, now that is a course. But ultimately the problem that our whole education system, actually, I'm not talking about only arts, it is basically goes in engineering also, from our IITs, from every across the board. Normally what we are doing is we are trying to, I mean, after I passed out long back, so I'm not sure really what is happening today. But most of us, the way that I see my son going to graduation school and all those things, we find that ultimately we are trying to prepare them for a job. Okay, after graduation, there are these vacancies you can apply. You are eligible for this, UPSC, this, that. A lot of examination-oriented studies that we are doing. That once you become BSc, you are eligible for this, course. You can try to go for this. If we try to focus on these startup skills, on entrepreneurship skills, out of those, let's say a batch of 30 students you are teaching during a BA course, let me tell you, even if one, which is very very low percentage, I will talk, let's say out of 100 students, if there is only 2 students who turn up into a job creator, they would be very easily absorbing another 20-30 people after some point of time. That is where we are talking that during that long duration of the courses that are being taught in the universities, if entrepreneurship skills are also mainstreamed into the courses, that would definitely help in terms of creation of in creating a whole set of job creators.
Thank you, sir. You have actually elaborated and expressed in detail that how it can be done. Monica Nagarji also would like to ask that how we can attract the students, and influence them for this. So some key words or some key motivational references you would like to
Yeah,
please
I
share
think
on the same.
it is a great question, actually, because again, as I talked about the change in mindset uh, in the higher academic world, this is again a question of change of mindset. When we talk about We are preparing students, that is our mindset. We are preparing students for job. So it has to be a mindset change. And how do you bring about a mindset change? You need influencers. So the academic institutions need to work with those startup leaders. Many of them really would be very happy. India is a country full of young entrepreneurs. We have, people who are ready to help, and they're very happy to be part of this whole, effort. If universities are really serious, they can always invite such influencers, those who have developed big startups. These are some of these mechanisms that that you know that will actually that will help the students to develop such kind of mindset that we can also do it. If this person can do it, he is also from a graduate background, he has done it, he has developed a full-fledged company, then why not me? But what skill sets did he achieve during his studies, during his work, that has helped in this? So motivational speakers like this, who have actually have a successful ventures in terms of startup, probably one very simple tool is that inviting them and trying to inspire your students. This can be a very easy, and this is very accessible also. That higher education system can always, they can invite not only very high end startups, but the middle end startups also, because everyone, if you sell dreams of that everyone can set up 1,000 crore company, that would be really very wrong on part of the institutions. It is always, we have the whole bandwidth of startups. So starting from a smaller unit to a larger unit, identify key people who have succeeded in that, in all these, in all the across the spectrum, and probably you can invite them, you can felicitate them, and some of the events that you organize during your, let's say 26 January, or any other event that universities and academic institutions actually organize. Vishwakarma Divas is one day where universities organize, especially the technical universities. Why not to honor such people who have really set up good industries? Why not to honor young entrepreneurs across the spectrum? That would help in developing, and that will actually inspire students.
Thank you, sir. You have actually given a complete action plan that how we can make it happen on ground level. So we have another query by Aishwarya Gupta ji, and she is saying that positive about the current entrepreneur ecosystem in India. So she is requesting that what is your take, as the students are now even dropping their studies and switching to eco entrepreneurship programs, and going on these lines. So how you look at this transformation with the mindset of youth moving towards entrepreneurship from the conventional courses?
Right, thank you again. A very excellent question, actually. Why? Because if you see statistics, Microsoft boss actually, he dropped out of, I think, Stanford or some university. Similarly, Bill Gates dropped out of some university. You find across the world several entrepreneurs who did not even complete their graduate studies. See, ultimately, what is an entrepreneur? Basically, he is a person who is actually really passionate about something that he wants to create, something he wants to deliver. He solves a problem. He is no less the PhD student. That is again, this question actually is again coming out of our. We all actually have similar apprehensions that studies drop out. People are dropping out of studies. But ultimately, what is the objective of our studies? What is the objective? Do you want degree holders, accumulation of degrees? Do you find that citizen a really profound sort of citizen who can deliver lectures, who can do things? Or you want people who are innovative, people who are ready to solve problems? Ultimately, an entrepreneur is basically is one who is in the current regime, if we are talking, in the current ecosystem. An entrepreneur is one who is looking for solving problems. He solves a problem and then he becomes an entrepreneur, and he gives a solution which is basically which is serving again, which is basically a private good, and then he removes the market failure that is happening. And once he removes that market failure, he is giving a solution and people are buying it. And there, he gives jobs to several degree holders, actually, if you see. Today, a dropout might be employing people uh, with uh, with degrees from IITs. So he's no less. I would never say that he's less because he has dropped out of studies. See, dropping out and doing nothing is one question. That you could not complete your studies because of some financial problem or because of you could not handle the studies. But dropping out to create something, that is what you are meant for, actually. That is what human life is. You want to create something. You want to give back to the society. You want to create wealth not by doing any wrongdoings. You are creating wealth through a very fair system by becoming an entrepreneur, and then you are solving a problem. You are engaging a lot of people. You are giving jobs to people. What else do we want from a person?
Yes, sir, very true. There are hundreds of examples, even in our nation, since ancient time, that people have not been formally educated or graduated, but they have done wonders in various fields they have chosen for. So, sir, there is one more small query from Madam Nirmala ji, that she want to request you to suggest some programs to motivate in this area.
I'm sorry, which area she wanted for?
Sir, entrepreneurship.
So, entrepreneurship programs, if you talk, uh, there are several programs. The Ministry of MSME has, it depends, what type of students you are catering to. Number one, if it is a technical education, and during that you want to talk about entrepreneurship, then definitely persons who are into the technical field would primarily go for setting up of technical sort of industries. So that would be, MSME has a lot of courses, Ministry of Small, Medium and Micro Enterprises. Then there are other academic institutions, like there is NISBUD again, which is for small entrepreneurship development. They have some very good courses. And if you talk about the state level, also there are several courses and different. There are, in fact, the management. I think one of the sector skill councils, management policy skill council, has developed a full-fledged qualification for entrepreneurship courses. But it is again a context-driven. If I don't know what is the background of Madam Nirmala, but if you talk about academic institution, which is a station, let's say in Gurgaon, I would take example of Gurgaon. Let's say if you're stationed in Gurgaon, if you're coming from a Gurgaon institution, uh, it is a context driven in terms of the the business environment that is there and the type of institutions you are in. This will The academic institutions have a flexibility, I guess, and if it is not there, they should try to bring this flexibility. That what is the business environment available here, which type of industries are growing, and where this startup with this entrepreneurship skills can be taught, in which all domains they can develop their own courses. The universities have their flexibility. They can tweak the current system, the current courses that are available in the qualifications, to develop more qualifications, which actually delivers what they want. So it is a very open-ended field. It can the entrepreneurship skills involves one sort of attitudinal skills that needs to develop into a mind of a person who wants to become an entrepreneur. Then of course the other business strategies, business development, project financial institution to modify such courses, consultation with some industries, courses in your audible.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I don't think that there is, because I think everything you have elaborated and all the important queries has been taken by you in a way, such a detailed manner. So now I would like to thank you, sir, for such an elaborative and informative session on formal development of skill ecosystem in India and way further. Sir, it is our pleasure that a distinguished personality who has been one of the pioneers in formalization of skill education in India has shared today his experiences and provided an insight of national and international vocational education system. Sir, you have touched the actual areas where the skill universities, technical universities, and other higher education universities and institutes can contribute and can become the game changers for building the India as a skill hub for all nations. Sir, you have shared the wide spectrum of skill, vocational and higher education and their collaborative and contributing roles. Your message has definitely enlightened us with the larger view, holistic view, especially what is expecting from academia at national level in the development of an interwoven skill and education ecosystem through credit, curriculum, and evaluation tools development as per national and international standards. So, sir, you have actually awakened all the participants that what exactly is our responsibility towards our nation, towards the youth. I'm really thankful, sir, that you have consented to guide us in spite of your hectic schedule. Sir, now I would like to invite Professor Rishi Palji, Dean Pedagogy and Capacity Building, as well as convener of this 1 week national workshop, to pay a formal vote of thanks to our esteemed guest today, Professor Shri Anand Pandeji. Professor Rishi Palji.
Thank you, Chanchal madam. Thank you very much. Actually, sir, when we were planning this program, so we went for a very rigorous brainstorming to justify the various topics. And my team member, everyone suggested your name for the topic which you have taken, and really you have justified it. And why I am talking this is for the participant, that in the present system, we are facing a paradox. And the paradox is number of people, they are having degrees in their hand. And on the other hand, there are a number of people, those who are well skilled and trained, but do not have qualifications in their hand. And sir, you have justified that. How the major challenge of India, so that skill can be imparted, and those who are already having skill, how they can be provided with the qualifications, so that the problem of employability, which is one of the major challenges India is facing today, and it is not only for today. What is happening? India's youth generation is going to increase, and if the youth generation will increase, certainly the employment will be a challenge for India. So wonderfully you have addressed that, and the remedy you have given, that blending or co-working of academia with vocational institutions, and yes, of course, blending of entrepreneurship in that can be a solution for the present challenge. Sir, we express our heartfelt thanks to you for sparing your time, being so busy, but you were the appropriate person to address this challenge or to address this issue. So we are thankful on behalf of my university, on behalf of my Honorable Vice Chancellor. I convey my thanks to you for sparing the time and giving such a valuable, such an insight giving information to the participants. Reason being, whosoever is there on the online platform, they are going to be the future leaders among educational institutions. So what is pulse of the day? That should be understood, and you have given the strategy how to check the pulse of day and how it should be addressed. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the participants for the patient listening, and specifically for interacting. That interactive session was really wonderful with respect to the main session also. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will have to leave because I have another meeting probably.
Right, sir. Right, right.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. My request to the participant, we will join the next session 5 minutes before, and this request is not for some of the specific participant, it is for everyone. We have been observing from the very first session that some of the participants are joining very late, and as and when they are marking their attendance, they are leaving. This is not something a good thing. Our resource person is still there on the platform, and we have started leaving the platform. It is visible to all of us. Let us be mature, and let us attend the session from the beginning to the closer, and let us wait for the completion of the session. This is my request. So please join the session at least 5 minutes before, and you should attend the session up to the completion of the session. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will reassemble at 12 noon again with another very wonderful expert. Thank you. Thank you very much.